Welcome to the Photographers Podcast, where we interview photographers from across the country. Every month, we will bring you a new personality where we step into the captivating world where moments freeze, emotions speak, and stories unfold with the click of a shutter.
In today's episode, we meet with landscape photographer and graphic artist Chris Noronha. Chris is a world-class photographer and is here today to share his stories and photographs.
Welcome to the Photographers Podcast, where we bring in experts from around the country to help us with our own photography. Today, I have a special guest, a master landscape photographer and a graphic artist, Chris Noronha. How are you, Chris? And thanks for joining us.
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
So, I always like to start with finding out, how did you get involved into the landscape type of photography? What drew you to that?
Well, it's interesting. When I first got into photography, so me and my wife, we had planned to go to Mexico for our honeymoon. And I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go out and pick up a cheap DSLR, take some nice shots. And it was there when I was just snapping away where kind of the light bulb went off. And I was like, okay, this is something I could really get into. And then from there, I just started diving into the art of photography and learning more about that. And then, I just went from there, like books, websites, tutorials, and YouTube back in the day was not what it is now.
Right.
So it was very hard to find people that are actually, teaching you stuff on YouTube. But from there it was, getting out and exploring Ontario and getting shots and.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the energy you have to spend to do this stuff, because to get the shots that you're getting, you're out at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock.
Sometimes, yeah.
Right, and standing in knee-deep in water. So let's talk a little bit about the challenges in getting the kinds of shots that you're getting.
So, for example, just recently, the Aurora hit, and I actually was late for the party because I was heading up. I actually went to Wasaga Beach to shoot it. And when you get there, you're just excited, and you look around and you almost forget, okay, I have to set my settings correctly to get the shots right. So some of the challenges is just slowing down and getting yourself set up enough where you're actually going to capture something that you can use afterwards. Also too, I've kind of delved into a little bit of astrophotography, which is a whole nother genre that's really difficult. So slowing down and not rushing it is a big
That's an excellent point, because I still today, if I get to a unique place that I've been expecting to go to, I almost want to get the shot because I think it's going to go away.
Absolutely.
So you rush and you just calm down, just get your settings right. It's not going anywhere, but for the longest time, I kept feeling I was going to miss the shot. Now, where are you finding these hidden gems that we see? The waterfalls, just the lakeside shots. Like, where are you finding these?
A lot of it is just researching online. I'll go on Google Earth and just scroll around and see.
Right.
Oh, okay, this is an interesting shot. I also follow quite a few Ontario photographers on, for example, Instagram. There's tons of people that are sharing locations, and there's a little bit of a community that I've kind of built as well, of people that I can share ideas with, share locations, and from there, I'll just go out and sometimes I'll just scout out a place, not actually expecting anything, like not going out to expect, okay, I'm going to grab this amazing landscape shot, but I'll go out and even at bad light, just if I have time, okay, this is actually going to be good for another day or something like that.
So you have a full-time job, I take it?
I do, yes.
So how are you finding time, and how is your wife dealing with you being away a lot for this sort of thing?
So it can be difficult sometimes, especially when you're dealing with, for me, landscape photography, you're dealing with good light. So there's times where, unfortunately, I have to go out and I'll have to shoot in bad light.
Sure.
Not necessarily to shoot something that I want to keep for later, but more as a scouting mission type of thing. So I have a folder of photos that they're like I have to return to spots.
Right.
And wait for the good light. If things work out, okay, I know I'm off on a Friday.
Right.
and the weather forecast looks really good, I'm going to head over there and try my luck, type of thing.
And you use photo pills as
Yes.
a tool to, and this is what I'm hearing a lot of photographers use now is
Yeah.
the app photo pills.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It really helps just understand where to expect the light to hit. One thing for me personally, the longer I've been shooting, especially landscape stuff, I've kind of become a little bit of a amateur meteorologist, like learning
Right.
about weather, and
Right.
like, we're learning about forecasting what you can expect, because there's always a gamble. You never know, right?
Right. I affectionately call you the waterfall chaser. That's my name for you.
Thank you.
Everybody around me knows about it. So I've got a couple of pictures I'm going to show on the screen now.
Sure.
So the first one is, I think, one of the waterfalls in Hamilton, where you've got a person standing at the bottom, and I love that you used it for scale with the huge waterfall. It tells you how big that waterfall is, and
Right.
do you often use people for scale?
I tend not to, but recently, over the past year or so, I've kind of been, actually it's because of that shot that I've purposely wanting to add people into my images. So that particular one, that's Sherman Falls in Hamilton.
Sherman Falls, yes.
Yeah. And I was out a couple years ago, summer, I was actually with my wife to just go explore. She's never been to that one. So there's kind of a, it's
Kind of easy to get into that one
it
too,
is.
isn't
It's,
it? Yeah.
You know, it's a very popular waterfall. There's a parking lot within a 5-minute walk from the waterfall. And I remember the intention was to shoot it without anybody in the shot. And this woman walked in, and she just literally walked up, took a quick snap, and walked away. And it was like, wow, that was perfect.
Magic. It was magic.
I couldn't have asked for anything better. It was one of those things, and to this day, it's one of those shots that I'll purposely think about. I need
It
to
taught you
add.
something, didn't
Yeah,
it?
Absolutely.
And sometimes that's what happens
Absolutely,
for us.
yeah.
So the next shot I'm going to show is of Morningstar Mill.
Yes.
And listen, I know this mill. It's a beautiful way to show a waterfall. I will tell you that when I tried to get this shot, I actually stumbled and I almost fell down that cliff. So I really want to talk about the photo, but I also want to talk about safety
Absolutely.
in this sort of thing. So let's talk about the mill first and how beautiful that shot is.
Yeah. So that one, I think it was September, just before the colors started changing, and actually my intention of going there was a scouting mission for the fall, which actually never really happened.
With the colors, right? Because there's a lot of beautiful
Right.
trees there, yes.
Right. I worked on a few compositions, and I really liked the one that ended up being the shot that I
Oh,
took.
it's very nice, yes.
Yeah. Actually, now back to the safety issue. That one is one that I find a lot of people they don't know enough about the location and how difficult it is to get down
Yeah.
there. It can be very dangerous. There's actually been quite a few rescue missions
I
in
bet- I believe
that
it.
area. My biggest thing, especially nowadays as I get older, getting the shot is not worth my life.
No.
It's not worth my health at all. So if I ever feel that there's an inkling of, this
Danger.
is dangerous,
Yeah.
I pull back. And
When did that happen for you?
Um,
Did you have an experience that told you this?
I actually have had an experience. I went to go shoot at the top of Scarborough Bluffs.
Okay.
Now, Scarborough Bluffs, if people don't know it, it's a cliff that's I believe it's all sand.
And it's eroding.
And it's eroding
Yeah.
at a crazy pace. Especially, I'll completely avoid it after a rainfall because that's completely dangerous. And you'll see people that are, those Instagram selfie people
Yes.
that go there and
Yes.
they capture their selfies, but they don't realize how dangerous that place is. And I've actually seen videos of like huge chunks of the cliffs just falling down. And there was one time where I was shooting very close to the edge, which, in hindsight I shouldn't have. But I noticed that the ground not too far from me was actually falling down. So I stopped myself, I pulled myself back, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is probably a little too dangerous.
Well, I think the parks people appreciate that because they've talked a lot about that space,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. This kind of photography lends you to taking chances, which you shouldn't do because you can't always get the right angle or there's this. So make sure, I think the message for everybody is just to make sure that you're safe.
Absolutely.
Right? And this sort of thing. So now, recently, the eclipse.
Yes.
Now, a ton of people in the camera club went out to try to get this. So many people came back disappointed because of the weather.
Right.
How was your experience?
So for me, I had a plan that I'd planned for months, really. I originally had planned on going to a specific location, but the night before, the forecast was just all clouds, and so I made a last-minute change, and I headed towards Lake Erie. And I took the day off and had everything planned out. So we actually stopped at Cayuga Speedway.
Okay.
And it was still the clouds, the whole drive up, the clouds were just really thick, and I was thinking, this is a complete waste of gas money and time, and this is not going to work out. But as the eclipse was starting, you could see in the distance a clearing, and I was getting very hopeful. And the great thing is it was a group of us. There was probably about 20 of us that showed up. It was a planned meetup that a few people from Instagram set up. And right as totality was about to hit is where it was clear enough. There were still some clouds, but it was clear enough to actually see it. And probably one of the top, if not one of the most amazing experiences photography-wise I've ever had. It was amazing. The very eerie. It was so the first, I'd say, minute into it, there was this weird, odd calm, and even the birds were acting really strangely.
Yeah, I've heard at the zoo they actually did some studying of the animals to see how they would handle that.
Yeah.
Right.
So I specifically remember there was a bunch of birds that flew off, and then they flew back down, and they flew up again, and regardless, it was such an amazing experience. I actually felt that the experience was amazing because I actually got to share it with some other people, other photographers. So that was really cool.
Well, and you're one of the few people that have the shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I'm showing here for everybody to see. So congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you. That was a lot of. I think for that one, I was completely worried that I wouldn't get it.
Right.
And there was a lot of, this is going to be a big waste of time.
You always go.
Yeah.
I tell people if you're worried about weather, just go, because the weather can actually create some cool options for you too.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about some of my favorite pictures of yours. So the first one that we're showing up here is a picture of Niagara Falls. But what's so special about it is the lighting that comes through. I think it's where you go under the falls. I think that's the photo. You can go down there.
Yep.
But the lights coming out and the lights coming through a tunnel area. Talk to me about it, because I have never seen a shot of Niagara Falls like this.
So this is actually another kind of special one, because so that lookout, or the little cabin, is called Journey Behind the Falls.
Journey Behind the Falls, yes. Yeah.
And it's kind of I'd say it's a popular, kind of iconic shot of Niagara Falls. Like, a lot of people have shot that specific composition before, and I had planned actually to shoot sunrise
Right.
over the falls, because I believe it was actually end of February when I took that shot. And so the whole idea was to have the sunrise popping up exactly, using photo pills, obviously, to pop up and get a composition that way. But I had this shot in mind, so before sunrise, I ran out to get the vantage point, and I set it up. And what was actually interesting is the lights were not on when I first got there to set up my shot. So it didn't have the same effect as, all of a sudden, when I was taking a few shots, the lights turned on. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I literally shot 30 or 40 exposures. Like, just I bracketed a few and got away with it.
It's a stunning photo.
Thank you.
Stunning, stunning. Okay, so on the next picture is the picture of the Milky Way and the path. First of all, where is that? Is that like Lynn Shores or something
So
like that?
that is Presqu'île.
Presqu'île,
Provincial Park.
okay.
Yeah, so that's the boardwalk, the marsh boardwalk there.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's in, I believe it was in the fall, if I'm not mistaken. Regardless, so it's a composite of obviously the two pictures. So I took a blue light or evening shot of the boardwalk and then composited the Milky Way afterwards.
Right, okay.
From that same night, but
Yes.
just maybe an hour or two later.
And getting the Milky Way picture, like, I mean, what do you get, like a 30-second exposure? Pretty dark sky, I guess?
Fairly dark. There was I did have to clean up a few. There was a house in the background that
Okay.
was just distracting.
Yeah. The next picture I like because it reminds me of Iceland. It's a picture of two boulders in the water with ice on top. So, hey, where was that? And how are you able to make the ice look so real and clear?
So that is a spot I frequent quite often in Scarborough. It's just literally just the Lake Ontario. You never think it's like in an industrial area, but I believe it's actually the tail end of the Scarborough Bluffs. But it really works well there because sunset hits during the wintertime. It sidelights those.
And it's the
that
side
area.
light that makes that
Yeah.
just sparkle, right?
Yeah. So if I'm not mistaken, I'm actually in the water with my tripod, like literally like.
Anything for the
up to my-
photo, right?
Yeah. And so I'm really close up. I think I was using a 24 to 70
Yeah.
lens, and I'm really close up. So I've got it would be a focus stack.
Just so you can get from front to back all the way in, yeah.
Exactly. And
So-
it just happened to be that the light was hitting the ice so perfectly.
So let me ask you this question then, because I get confused as to why don't I just use f16, f22 to get from front to back versus focus stacking? What's better about focus stacking versus the aperture?
It all depends on what you want to keep in focus. Like, say for example, if you have something very close to your camera, you're going to get that in focus, but you're not going to get the background in focus as
Even
much.
with the higher f-stop?
Even with the higher f-stop. It all depends on how close it is to your lens.
Well, that's that
obviously.
hyperfocal distance. Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Where focus stacking helps is if you have a subject that's really close to your lens and you also have something that's further back that you still want to keep in focus, that's where blending the exposure.
Okay, and I'm starting to be a believer in the focus stacking, trust you. Especially now that you can touch the back of your camera and you can take a picture, right? And how many do you recommend we take in a focus stack?
So personally, I recommend taking as many as you can. Obviously, it's not film day, so it doesn't cost you anything. Just take 10, 15, doesn't matter. Just take as many as you can. What I'll do is I'll run a whole set, like I'll take 5, and then I'll take another 5, but maybe change the position of the focus slightly.
Okay.
And then when I'm back on my computer, I'll pick the best ones.
I
there.
see. Just gives you more options, is what you're saying, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's really good to know.
Yeah.
Now, the last picture I want to show here is it's a waterfall picture with the birches, and for me it was the balance, and plus your post-processing. Those birch trees just pop out there, but yet they're not really competing with the water that's coming through because you've done the right amount of motion with that. So where was that, and how did you get the colors to be so vibrant?
So that one is it's one of those happy little accident photos because so that's in Algonquin Park.
Okay.
I was actually hiking. So I'll go back. Every fall I do a solo camping trip in Algonquin Park, and I'll just spend a couple days and just explore the park and shoot like for a couple days everywhere and anywhere. And I was actually hiking through one of the trails, a really popular trail. For the life of me, I can't think of the name of it right now. But I noticed a side trail that didn't look very used at all. And I just thought, I'll give it a try. And as I was walking a little bit, I started hearing rushing water. And that's, to a photographer, that's like music to your ears. So I headed over and I noticed a little stream coming through. I stopped there. I didn't like what I first saw, so I ventured a little bit downstream, and then that's when I saw the birches. And it was kind of like,
Ah.
yeah, exactly. I must have spent maybe 30 minutes just working on a composition that I liked. For the post-processing, I really bumped up the saturation in the yellows and the oranges, just to make it so, because it was completely like covered in leaves.
Right.
Like, it was, couldn't have asked for a better time to find that spot.
Yeah. No, I just like the balance. It just speaks to me a little bit, you know? So very good, nice work on that one.
Thank you.
So now, you're not just a photographer. You're a bit of a teacher. You have a graphic arts background. So you've started to do seminars. What do you like to teach, and what do you hope that your students take away from any of your workshops?
So for me, I'm really just starting out with the teaching and workshops and stuff. I did one this past fall with an Instagram group, and I really enjoyed it. For me, when I was first starting photography, I struggled with finding people to ask questions of. And
Right.
that was always one thing that it was very difficult to kind of share ideas and or get people to actually answer questions that I had.
I find now, you know, we try to take our photography as far as we can. And there's always room for growth, but sometimes you struggle for the next step. So at that point I go, well, how about giving back a little bit, right? Why don't we help some other people and enjoy in their successes? You know, because photography can be very competitive, and to actually start looking at it as, you know, what's cool is when somebody takes a good shot that you help them with. That's a very cool thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. I found that my favorite moments photographing are when I'm sharing it with like a group of people, because you share this moment together. Like, and obviously, you know, having some time alone and shooting it could be, you know, very beneficial for stress and everything like that. But for me, those moments where I'm sharing it with a group of people that, you know, we share a common interest.
Right.
It's huge.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about your graphic arts skills. How do you use them to help your photography? And what's the, how does it blend into doing good work? So
with the graphic arts, it's there's a lot of rules, just like there are with photography. So a lot of them are very similar, just, you know, design-wise, you know, simplicity. Learning about color is huge. So I think that kind of works into a little bit what I do. It's a tough one because they're very different, but they have very similar little ideas.
Well, I would imagine the compositing is where it starts. So I'm going to show a couple of your graphic arts work, and the first one is The Girl in the Arch.
Right.
And fantastic work. Take it as a composite.
Yes. Yeah.
And were you using that for any advertising, or what were you doing with that?
So actually, that is it's part of a workshop tutorial I did with a photo club that I was part of.
Okay.
And so we did a composite class way back when, and that was the image that we worked on to put together. And it's a really basic one. I think it's maybe 3 or 4 images that are put together.
Yeah, I would think something like that, yeah. And just as a learning tool. So, and the second picture we're going to show here is of the different masters of photography. And it almost looks like it's a magazine kind of insert or a cover. So why don't you talk about that one?
So that was another thing I did for that same photo club, where it was just an advertisement for a meeting that they're having, displaying some of Karsh's work.
Karsh's work, yeah.
Yeah, and so it was just a way to promote the event.
Okay, one thing I ask all my guests is, who do you follow to get inspiration from, and who do you recommend to our audience to follow?
So I follow so many amazing photographers, especially even just in Ontario. There's so many right now. It's almost impossible to just narrow down one or two or three, or there's so many of them. Actually, one thing right now I've been doing a lot of is following or researching a little bit of landscape painters.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so even like obviously Tom Thompson.
Yep.
Everybody in Ontario
Yep. knows
Tom Thompson and the Group of Seven. So just seeing him and how he explored Ontario and just some of the work that he's done. But one of my favorites is a man named Albert Burstad.
Okay.
And he's an American painter from the late 19th century. He did a lot of paintings of the West, American West, back when it wasn't even discovered really. And his work is incredible. Like the way he paints light is actually what I kind of am inspired to put into my own work, post-processing wise.
Right.
He just does, his paintings are they're almost ethereal. They feel like they're from a different world, but they're places we know really well because they've been photographed a million times now.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're getting close to the end, but a couple more things I want. What tips and tricks can you give budding landscape photographers that takes their photography from here maybe up to here? And I mean, I know to get from here way up here, that's a self-growth thing, but we can always help people get up to that, that really almost expert level.
Right. I think the one thing I could say is just shoot as much as you can. Just don't stop shooting and learn from every shot. One thing that I struggled with is I questioned myself when I was first starting out, is this worth taking a shot? And I missed the opportunity of actually learning from mistakes back in those days. And there's a famous quote by Bresson that says, your first 10,000 shots are your worst. And it really rings true, because the more you can learn from even your ups and downs, the better you're going to become.
Well, I mean, there's a saying, right? It takes 10,000 hours to be a master at anything.
Right.
It's kind of the same idea, isn't
Absolutely.
it, right? Yeah, so
Absolutely.
just keep taking pictures is basically your advice. And I agree 100% with that. And seeing as though you don't have to pay for film anymore.
Right.
Right?
Makes it a whole lot easier.
A whole lot easier, doesn't it? I always like for people to be able to find your work. So I'll put up your website and all that stuff right about here. Can you tell us where people can find you?
So best spot is my website, chrisnoronhaphoto.com. I try to keep it updated as much as I can. Every now and then it gets a little stale, but also social media. I'm really big on Instagram. I use it quite often, and it's Chris Noronha Photo. I'm all really
I recommend people follow that and enjoy it, because your stuff is so much fun to look at.
Thank you.
Listen, thanks a lot for joining us. Our audience is going to love understanding and learning from your work. And I'd like to thank you for joining us. Until next time, thanks for being on the Photographer's Podcast.